Okay. So today I'm going to present some notes on GraphQL and specifically a feature that we're building. Let me share my screen. So this feature, as a part of an ongoing effort to improve the GitLab UI or UX, we're creating a page. It's going to be a read-only page where they can view all of the rules that are related to a specific branch in a project. So the branch name is here. So the first one is main. These can also include wildcards. And then underneath that, we're going to have the approval rules, the branch protections, status checks, and vulnerability scans are actually now security policies. So to implement this, backend needs to add these data points to the GraphQL endpoint. So let's talk a little bit about how that works. So GraphQL is we essentially can expose anything we want through the GraphQL endpoint. Typically, these are objects that we store in a database. So project we expose, and we expose data points within the project. We can also use resolvers to point to different data sets, which in this case we have to because our naming in the database is actually slightly different from what we want to expose. So we're exposing this field branch rules, but really in the database it's actually the protected branch. So protected branch is the root node for all of these associated rules. So from branch, protected branch, protected branch, not branch protection. So from the protected branch model, we have associations to approval rules and also vulnerability scans. And at some point, we're going to have to figure out how to also connect security policies, which are kind of isolated at the moment and have their own flow. So let's explain a little bit about how we define the schema for graph. So this file here is the project type. So this defines what we can expect to return from the project node in GraphQL. So this is graphical. I think you can see this, right? Can you see the graphical? Yeah. So graphical is a built-in GraphQL Explorer, and we can submit queries through here. And this one is specifically fetching flight.js/cool. So that's the repo in my GDK or the project. And so if we go back to this, there we go. Project type. So the project type here is actually what can be returned in the query we just saw. So if I request that we return the ID field, should now see this definition here is actually what's returning the ID here. So to add branch rules, we're going to need to add another field, which I have done here. So branch rules, so the second line is the type of field. So the ID field before, you might have noticed, is actually a GID. That's a type that we've defined. And this is also a type which I've created. So I've created the branch rule type. And because we are using a collection here, it's not a single record, we have to use the connection type from the type. And then we can configure some other stuff like null true, which allows the field to be nullable. So if we don't have any branch rules, it's not going to throw an error. And in this case, we also need a resolver. The resolver is, it tells the graph logic where to pull the data from. So because we have this slightly unusual setup where branch rules are actually protected branches in the database, we need a resolver to tell Graph, how to fetch that data. So this is the resolver here. This one is a very simple resolver. They can be quite a lot more, complex than this. In this case, we're literally just telling it the base object that's being passed in, which is the project in this case. We want to resolve protected branches on that. And that allows Graph to fetch the information from the correct location. And if we go back to here, we'll also see, so we're going to present that with the branch rule type. Stop me if you have any questions. And the branch rule type, each type we define the name. So GraphQL name is defining what the object will be named within the GraphQL description, and then it tells us, we're going to tell it that it accepts protected branches. We could actually have a list of objects in here. In this case, we only want to present protected branch records. If you wanted protected branch or branch rule, we could have an array in here with protected branch, comma, branch rule. And then we also do some authorization. Authorization can be done on 3 levels. It can be done on the type itself. So that's going to prevent anybody from fetching any types if this authorization fails. It can be done on the field level, and it can also be done somewhere else, which I can't remember right now. So authorize
maybe a resolver.
Yes, a resolver level. Yeah, that's right. Yes. So essentially each type is a schema for the specific object, and then let me just check my notes. Yeah, so the graph endpoint is made up of 2 different types of objects. So typically it's either a node or an edge. So a node is essentially like a has one or a belongs to relationship, whereas an edge is a collection, so like a has many relationship or has and belongs to many relationship. And the different ways to, we have two, we have the way that we define which type it's going to be is you specify the type of field here. If it's a singular type, we just pass in the type record or type class. If it's an edge, like a collection record, we actually have to specify the connection type. I think I actually mentioned this a second ago. Yeah, so you can see here, like, because these are a collection of records, we have to specify connection type. Yeah, so I mean that's basically all I've got to present. If you have any questions, like feel free to ask away. This isn't super complex here. I'm not expecting like a massive amount of questions here. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I think it's a good starting point for people who want to know how to do the GraphQL at GitLab, because we have some specific, like, our setup is a bit like different from the default one. So I think that's really useful.
Yeah. Hopefully next time it can be a bit more in depth and show some more of the complexities.
And I have one question, just because I didn't follow thoroughly the topic. I see now that branch rules are basically protected branches, in the moment.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
But I remember there were discussions, between you and Vasily, that regarding moving it into different database like structure. Do we plan to do it, or did we decide to?
I did actually write a lot of code to do that, and then halfway through doing that, we realized that essentially all of the features that we needed could already be implemented or already are implemented. However, the structure's a little bit unusual. If you look at this, the response from this GraphQL endpoint, you might expect the database to be structured a little bit differently. But yeah, everything was already there, so we felt like it was a bit unnecessary because we would need to be running a lot of migrations to migrate every single protected branch over to a new record in a branch rule table, and then we'd also need to do finalization migrations next release cycle and stuff like that. So for now, we're putting that on hold, and my assumption is currently that we probably won't ever need to do that. But if we do in the future, the way that we've built this, we'll be able to, because we have these resolvers that are telling it where to point to, we'll essentially be able to add the models and then reconfigure those resolvers.
Just replace and switch, like exactly, implementation. The interface is the same. Makes sense to me. Thank you for this presentation.
No worries. Cool. Okay, well, I guess I stop the recording.